You remember in Revenge of the Nerds when Lamar came out, the first one, he would clap for the song that they were performing. That's the kind of clap it looked like.
That's the only role he had. That was like Harlem Nights when he got the little gun. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna do with that, stupid?
Welcome to the Lunch Break Podcast, folks. Episode 25.
Let's go. My man done checked it before we came in.
Right,
we got the numbers right. Let's go.
Episode 25. This episode will affectionately be called 1,000 Bottles of Baby Formula.
Man.
That was good, right?
Which is way more apropos than
I just came up with
the
that.
headlines.
No, we don't have a title, and today I think we're coming in just free flowing. We typically are a topical podcast. Stu passive aggressively rejected my topic for today, and he just wanted to come in and just free flow and speak. Yeah, so man. We'll do that. Just connect. We're in person.
We're in person.
That's important to know. Yeah. Look, I'm really good at dapping because I've been around black dudes all week.
Dapping all day, all week. Yeah,
all week. I'm so glad my team member Samaj had sanitizer on deck at all times.
Oh, you got to.
It's gross.
We used to have that joke in school. Like, if they were trying to get rid of all black men on campuses across America, they would just have to have it.
Put the contagion in your palm.
Yeah, just in your palm, and that would be how you would administer it, and it would take everybody out.
So, one of our team, Xavier, actually, like you met him this week, or you met him 2 weeks ago, actually.
Times,
Xavier is the Philip Dubois of Boeing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I didn't realize it because I always hug him, and for some reason, I was like, why have I never noticed this? And I happened to dap him instead of hugging him. I was like, whoa. And he was like, I tried to tell you. I was like,
try to tell you, leave me alone. Just come and get this hug.
Then I got to connect him to the class of 2009 guy with the clammy hands. So
there you go.
Shout out to Philip.
Hey man, it's game. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't even have to explain that story. Anybody in class of 09 knew exactly what it was. You know your hands are clammy, bro.
Oh yeah.
So it's not a slight.
Happy 15 years, I guess.
15 years, man.
That's about to be a thing this year.
No, it's been a thing. I'm definitely at that point now where I feel the disconnect with the students. Like 6 years ago when I started recruiting, I was kind of the cool old head.
Yeah.
But the unk transition happened very quickly. And it's like they're looking at me and it is less of, I think you're cool. It's like, well, you're just a means to an end for a job now. Whereas before I really felt like I was connecting a little more. I'm definitely 15 years out. It's like when you say class 09, they give you that, ooh.
I'm not even going to do the math on that one.
Yeah. It's weird.
But I mean, it's interesting because anytime you're here, obviously I try to come hang out on campus, and I don't really actually do that unless you're here or unless I have administrative things to do.
It's also weird to just be hanging out on campus with no intended purpose.
Yeah. You want to
trying to relive the glory days like Uncle Rico. It's weird.
I mean, you don't want to be the guy that hung around high school after you went to college. You know what I'm saying? Like
with your Pontiac, revving up in the parking lot.
Right, trying to burn out. But yeah, whenever I go though, it's always kind of, I always feel a little bit more inspired. Like I like to see campus. I like to see them kind of live in that world now. It's so different than what our experience was, I feel like. But I don't know. It's good to see.
Were you a part of that combo 2 weeks ago? I think you were part of the combo I was having with Xavier where we talked about they actually, like, we bought books in the bookstore, but they did not.
Oh, that blew my mind. That blew my mind. Yeah, you won't find one book in that joint for real.
Like the bookstore is a merchandise center. It's a retail shop, and we had clothes there, but it was primarily geared towards books. And they're like, we just buy them from Amazon. Like, what do you mean you buy books in the bookstore?
That threw me for a loop. I didn't even make that connection. But then again, I was like, oh yeah, they got Uber and all that other stuff. So
the Uber thing had been present in my mind for a couple years now, but the bookstore just never made that connection. I'm like, Jeff Bezos really did put those books on Amazon to begin with. That makes sense.
Makes sense. That's true. I mean, that actually really blew my mind. They got a barbershop on campus now. I feel like I took a lot of steps to get to the barbershop when I was in school.
I actually don't like that.
Okay, tell me why.
I prefer the method.
You don't want everybody to have the same kind of cut?
No, well, that's something we definitely need to talk about. This might just be the podcast talking about the youth of today, but I don't want everyone to have the same cut, but I like that idea of like, it's a person in my dorm that's super dope at cutting hair and finding who that individual is.
Yes.
And then, so that's what we were trying to come up with the other day when I was trying to remember Steve Boykin's last name, because there were 4 people or so within the dorm who cut hair in that dorm. Yeah. So
few people. Yeah.
So that's like, that was just the thing. It's part of the culture. It's part of that experience.
Yeah.
But I get it, I guess. It's nice to have that. I'm sure that it still exists as well. There's got to be people in the dorm cutting hair. Yeah.
They all got locks anyway, or they all trying to braid up or whatever anyway.
Strong hairlines, too.
Strong hairlines, that's right.
We did the panel last night, and
that's funny.
And I was talking about just not being a hater as you age and age gracefully, because they were some of the guys were sharing experiences of where just older people just didn't look out for them. It was like one person talked about a 40-year-old employee at the company, or a 40-year employee at the company who was a black man and just didn't show him love and embrace him when he joined. I'm like, I've learned as I've aged that you really have to one, hold yourself accountable in the moments when you are becoming a hater, because you actually got to notice it.
That's true.
Like, it happens.
I think we have to be accountability partners in that regard. Like, I feel like if we hear, we gotta be like, nah, you hating, bro.
Yeah, and it comes up. Like, I caught myself to that point. I was walking around like, look at all these hairlines. Like, what you do? Like just the straight, not even just the hairline. I'm just like, my thinning happens in the top. So I was like, look at how thick his hair is. Like, it moved from hate to envy. I was like, oh my goodness. So like, give me your hair care routine. You got a YouTube channel, bro? Like, let me get that.
Yeah, because all we've been seeing at this age is that Beijing.
Yeah, it's awful. Now I will say, I won't mention this brother's name, but there is a younger guy on the team, and I was looking like, woo, you can't be more than 22. I'm like, you were losing it, brother. Like, look like mosquitoes been eating the top of your head.
I can't even laugh, bro. Nope, never mind. That laughing catches, bro.
But at 22, like, that was a shot. I'm like, man, the workplace must be stressing you, brother. I mentioned this on my Finsta. Generationally, there is a style difference.
Yes,
there's legitimately and it's weird, and I'm assuming it happened in our generation as well. I don't know what that style would have been like. Oh, all these kids walking around with Caesars, and I got that. Why don't everybody have that noble Negro haircut like I used to have? The Jackie Robinson, and like, in my day we had the Jackie Robinson and that Sidney Poitier, and y'all out here with them Caesars with the deep waves.
You need a part, man.
There's still some fire waves on campus.
Still doing it.
But most of the kids, most of the young men have front tapers and locks, and the front taper just is, it's a wide range of what that front taper looks like, and it just looks crazy.
Some of them look great, and some of them is like the locks start way too late.
Yeah, as a lock king myself now, I think
this guy.
I do believe. I think I made 10 months into the journey this week, okay, so I intended to not do the front taper from the outset, but I don't know that I have the hair to do the front taper anyway.
You just got to get it to lay down, big dog.
But some of them look nice, some of them look ridiculous.
Some of them look crazy.
I am not against it. To each generation its own. I think it makes sense. It is an imprint. It was even at the career fair today, seeing all the kids with locks when they were teaching us to cut our hair when we were in school. It was incredible to see that.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, I think that's the reason why, like, this generation is allowed to be a little bit more free. It's a little bit more acceptable now than it was when we were in school. Because, I mean, there were black colleges that were making kids cut their hair before they came to school.
Not just black colleges, the inroads program. When you go to those incubators of black talent that are trying to get you, it served a purpose. I don't think it was respectability politics in a way that I didn't appreciate. And I have a note on that too, actually, I'll get to in a second. But it was understanding the rules of the game in which we elected to play, which is one of my biggest gems that I always give people. And it was at that time, corporate America was not receptive to your hair in that way. So if you're trying to get there, this is the pathway. And it was just a reality that you had to confront. Are you going to contort and change and modify yourself for this job that you want or not? And the people whose locks are still down their back and swinging like Rapunzel now are the people that said, no, I'm going to shirk the establishment and go a different way.
Yeah.
So there was, what was the thing about, we were in a classroom of physics class, I believe, or like thermodynamics, something I don't understand, something STEM. And it's always like, why y'all have me talking in front of a STEM class? Like, I can't speak to anything you do technically, but I'll just tell you what it's like to be a day in my life is really what I give people. So we're talking in front of this STEM class, and a student asked about locks, and there was a guy on our team with us who is everybody's early career except for me. So all of them have been out of school 4 years or less. And this guy actually went to Morgan. But he's we're not recruiters. We're recruiting, but we're not coded as recruiters. This is our side of the desk job. So this guy's actually this guy's actually in university recruiting, and he went to Morgan and he said something about like, yeah, but like make sure it's styled nicely if you're going to have locks. And I stopped him mid conversation. Like, no, we're not going to do the respectability politics. Like if you want to show it without a style, that's totally okay. Like hygiene is hygiene. Peace. That's one thing, right? Because that could just be disruptive in the work environment in so many different ways for anybody.
You've dealt with some of that.
Yeah, some of the recently. That's the thing, especially in HR, you'll get people making complaints about body odors disrupting the workplace and all of that. But like to tell students your hair has to be neat and
that
clean.
That was a thing.
It was just, but even
I'm happy
within
you caught that because that's all we were told.
But even
even with a shortcut.
Yeah, but he's saying it even within the context of your natural hairstyle. Make it like, just nice and neat. Type of thing. Like, just no, nice we don't want that. So we had those conversations. So we talked about what the guys look like. The women across campuses. So I did not touch Spelman's campus this week, although I seen what I'm assuming are quite a bit of Spelman women or Spelman ladies walking through Morehouse's campus over the course of the week because I've been here 5 days now. Yeah. But I did do interviews on CAU's campus yesterday, mock interviews. And there is definitely a style for young women right now. And it is that 30-inch bust down. All of them got wigs, which is like, that was the thing that blew my mind. I'm like, one, they look expensive. Like I just the type, the way to have to keep up, having to be a baddie to like go to school is just crazy. Man, like
that's another expense that I feel like we wouldn't. I feel like a lot of
women wore jeans when we were in school.
Yeah, they don't do that now.
Like it's just all athleisure.
Jeans
everything.
And sweatpants.
Yeah, like it's well, sweatpants are still being worn. Comfort, but it's.
I mean, I feel like it's more.
Things were loose. Yeah, things were loose back then. It was a different style. Like it's a time period. Like we really are in a completely different era and generation. So
loose is coming back too, though.
What's coming back?
Looser like jeans coming back.
Well,
too.
Beetlejuice came back, so there's a lot of things coming back.
Can come back. Yeah, that's
it's crazy.
That's true.
Y'all got Beetlejuice branded Fanta out here in Atlanta. Atlanta's a weird place. So the 30-inch bust down wigs. You don't see a woman without baby hairs gel down to her forehead walking on those campuses.
The toothbrush in the bag.
Like, it was. I was like, yo, it was not a thing when we were in school. Like it was there were very few people who were doing that with their baby hairs. And they were of certain ethnic backgrounds.
I feel like that kind of stopped in high school, but I could be wrong.
Oh, it's just prevalent.
Yeah, I feel like they were doing it when we were in high school.
Like, but if you're not
at a certain point, it stopped.
And it's like, I'd imagine it adds extra time. And like, granted, we're men. Like, so
if you wear your hair short, though, they do though.
Say more. I don't understand.
Like if you got like the Halle Berry '90s joint, like when they do the little taper on here, they be putting it down a little bit. They do a little curl thing.
That's not the same thing that I'm talking about, though.
Okay.
You're talking like sideburn things. For those who are not going to visually look at it, Stu was like circling his fingers around.
I feel like, you get on along the taper. I mean, not necessarily.
Well, we're not the authorities on baby hair. Let's just be clear here.
But when I braided my hair up, I had to make sure the joints.
I keep the edges.
I had to make sure my joints was.
I never used edge control or anything, but I made sure when Liz was braiding, I would always ask her, like, hey, make sure you got that little side. Yes. But most of that was my partial comb over to cover the little area that was thinning. But it was like that was the most distinct thing, the lashes and the baby hairs. Like it is a standard. You cannot leave your dorm room without that being your uniform.
Being a big thing when we were in school.
Well, I said this on events. I said this on the fence too. Like, well, you just logically, women in our generation could not do that in the classroom because they were trying to read transparencies on projectors on the screen, and you can't really see through that filter on a crappy transparency projected on the screen. Like, and they got smart boards. Yeah, they got smart boards in the classrooms and things now. Facilities are terrible, but they upgraded like the tools and systems within a terrible facility. So it's like little good stuff progress there. Yeah. But brilliant people still.
Oh yeah.
My Brazilian colleague joined us on Wednesday, I think, for the career fair. And she asked me to describe, in so many words, she asked me to describe like the value of an HBCU experience.
Ooh, how many times do you feel like you've gotten that question in your lifetime?
It's not a hard question to answer. It was interesting because she was on campus and
couldn't see it? Couldn't connect with it?
I won't say that she couldn't see it. I think she was just asking for additional context.
Okay.
It's quite possible this was her first time at an HBCU.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got you.
And she's worked with colleagues, and I'm sure she has friends and knows people who have been to HBCUs and graduated from HBCUs, but I don't think that she had been on a campus.
Fair.
And for those of you who are in the Spellhouse community, this was essentially Hump Wednesday, but it was a lighter version of Hump Wednesday because it was intended for career events. and it was hosted by Career Services, but there was a stage. And for those of you who have not been to Hump Wednesday in a long time, Hump Wednesday is different now.
Popping now.
It's and it was always popping, but it's like it's a production now. That's the difference. That's there is a stage. There are people. There was a dude rapping in Spanish and English, and it was fire.
Yeah.
And we're trying to recruit
on stage. It was.
And she saw the stage, and like she is from Brazil, so she was like, "Oh, there's going to be music here. Are people going to dance?" And I was like, "I don't think if they were, you don't want to see the type of dancing they're going to do here."
It's not going to be.
Get in the car right now.
You're not doing like the Eddie Gordo. You're not doing capoeira.
I don't know, man. That might have been a little racist. The Eddie Gordo, the Brazilian Tekken character was your reference that you went to.
Yeah, man. Size on season.
But to that point, I told her that's not what's going to happen here. And there was a lot of like Young Thug, and like we're trying to talk about resumes and stuff, and you're just hearing Young Thug and why am I blanking on my man from Memphis?
Dolph.
Not Dolph. There was some Dolph. There was some Key Glock, but I'm like older Memphis, like CMG, Cocaine Music Group. My brain is slow. It's not that I'm old. You like Cocaine Music Group, man. CMG. It doesn't even stand for Cocaine Music Group anymore. Yo Gotti. There we go. We would have let Aaron down.
I listened to the same music over and over.
We would have let Aaron down in that one, or we did let Aaron down.
That's true.
But it was just a lot of that. A lot of that thumping from. But he does have a painting. There was a lot of that thumping in the background while we're trying to talk. But in general, the conversation went to. In this country, people are a lot more separated, she was saying, and separated by race, ethnic groups and things. You're black, you hang out with your people. Yeah. You're white, you hang out with your people type of thing. And so she was trying to understand. Yeah. And I always start with the explanation, there's no black math. So the value of the HBCU education, which we've discussed on earlier pods, is much more about the experience socially. It's about the intentionality behind what you're being given from the institution and how they pour into you and wrap around you like a warm blanket, blah, blah, blah. We gave all that stuff. Yeah. So we went down that path, but it was just interesting to have that conversation in the Hump Wednesday context, have it when it's like, it hit me like, you've never been here before. And it's a little different because she is a Latina. And it's different than when it's like, you've got your white colleague who pulled up who may have never seen and like a Latina from Brazil. So, there is a depth of black race there in the country and things. So he's like, but it is still a very different cultural context.
Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. When did she come to this country?
It's a good question.
If you had to guess based on
I don't know. I know that I should know probably, but I know she's lived in Atlanta for 9 years.
Oh, that's an interesting question when you've lived in Atlanta for.
And she has, I think she was in Iowa before that though.
Oh yeah,
she was at another aerospace company in Iowa for a while before that, and so let's say 15 years in America.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, actually, it might be exactly 15. I think she might have said that. I was like, so when you came to America, I was graduating, so like to see that. It might be that.
Okay, all right. So she came. All right, she came at least with enough time to kind of understand what this looks like. Is she one of the Brazilians that acknowledges African influences? Has that been a conversation you've had?
I don't have an answer for that. Okay. I don't know. We've not had the conversation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to ask all the questions.
Yeah, no, I don't have.
No doubt.
So,
because I often feel like HBCUs do mirror a lot of the African influence in different places, like in terms of enveloping and community and music and like this kind of like cultural exchange, which is what Hump Wednesday, Market Thursday, and Market Friday technically is. People are selling their merchandise, collaborative economics, that kind of stuff. But that's where my mind went when I asked that question.
Yeah, you the African on the podcast. I feel you. Peace. Everything you say. Yep, I believe it. Yes.
Yeah.
Diasporic.
Life update, man. We ain't been on for a minute. I know people have been trying to figure out what we've been on. How are you? We didn't start out like we normally do. How are you feeling today, brother?
You don't want to ask me that question. Next question.
Okay. All right. Well, I will share.
You don't want my honest answer to that question. Yeah. How are you doing, Stuart?
I went to the doctor today. My wife is pregnant. We are expecting in March, and it's a very surreal experience. It's something I always felt like I wanted to do and wanted to be in terms of, being a father and a husband and all of those things. And it's I don't know. It's mind blowing when you are starting the process, going into the process. One, I did a lot this year by getting married and then expecting a child almost back to back. But I don't know. There's
trying to give y'all the math to say my child was not born out of wedlock.
I mean, hey, look,
or conceived out of wedlock. Yeah,
for real though. But yeah, no, it's been so far. It's been a remarkable journey. She my wife has been a good sport. It's to see so much change. Like there's change for me in my life, but I always feel like for the woman involved in that, there's a lot of change day to day that you're reminded of it almost every second of the day. And so I really have to acknowledge how she's kind of shown up in that regard, still keeping routine, still staying active, maybe a little too active, but I won't get into that right now. But yeah, started a new job, working at a company called Philo, streaming content licensing company. So going back into my Hulu bag. So that part's been pretty great. Yeah, I am okay. I'm doing all right. Taking it one day at a time and trying not to get ahead of myself.
So if I knew how to work the devices in this space, I would do the clapping things, but I don't know how to do it.
I don't even
so
know.
We'll add them in post, or I go, I wanted you to speak about your experience with all of that seriousness. That is why I softly titled this episode on the front end, 1,000 Bottles of Baby Formula. Congratulations to you and Audrey. You have had a lot of really good life changes and a positive dynamic over the last few months. I would consider, you said you're doing okay. Like it's like, it's hard to embrace life being good sometimes, especially based on the backgrounds we came from. But I'd say that's true. It's not just doing okay, you're thriving. And that's what thriving is. So own that it's thriving. And now on a non-serious note, when you were talking about the changes in her lifestyle, body, blah, 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 like carrying all of those types of things, it made me think of I was listening, then my mind went to when Bill Cosby was pregnant with the sandwich on the Cosby Show. That episode is my context. Like that was most of our first introduction as men too. Yeah. To like, what is it like for the journey of pregnancy? And everybody was like, what was his name? Was pregnant with a ship. I can't remember his name, the corny one. I always thought he was the corny one.
Oh my God.
See, Martin. Even his name was corny. Shout out to the Martins out there in the world.
Damn, you own one today, bro. Everybody can get it. No one is safe.
But no, yeah, that guy. I did not like that character, man. I didn't think he was right for Denise.
Clearly, you weren't messing with that
Denise deserved better. But yeah, so that was always my initial context.
Nelson. You talking about Nelson?
No, Nelson's the dude that was bagging groceries not too long ago. Yeah. I can't remember that guy's real name.
I don't remember his real name either, which is crazy because he's been in a lot of stuff since people found out he was doing groceries.
Ernie Hudson, no. Ernie Hudson's a completely different person. But I think his last name might be, I don't know.
I know Ernie Hudson because he reminds me of Jabron's dad.
I never met G's dad.
Yeah, Mr. Mo, for sure.
But Ernie Hudson also kind of looks like Meshach Taylor, and like he's got a little bit of, what's my man's name from Garrett?
Morris.
No, not Garrett Morris.
You would know that one.
I know Jamie Garrett Morris. Garrett Morris is Stan.
Yeah.
But
Stan.
What is dude's name? So Nunu's pops. What's that guy's name?
Oh,
Keith David. There we go. So those three, Ernie Hudson, Keith David, and Meshach Taylor, for some reason, they're the same person in my mind.
No, that's fair.
I don't know why.
That's good.
And they don't actually look alike, but something about them favors to me.
Is it the salt and pepper hair? It might be the salt and pepper hair.
Well, to be fair, I'm seeing Keith David in my mind right now on Dead Presidents with the baldy.
Oh yeah. Okay. He's had a lot of hairstyles. I mean, he's lived a lot of life.
So have we. Stuart has a low haircut right now.
Good point. Yeah,
getting in dad mode.
That's right. I forgot about that. I cut my hair. A lot of change. A lot of change for real. Completely forgot about that.
Look, I'm gonna force you into the topic.
Hey,
you said a lot of change. We'll get into talking about identity.
We didn't talk about the wedding, did we?
We did.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, we did. Sure. All right.
Well, that's how long it's been between pods.
Yeah,
we did that wedding. I mean, that podcast June 17th. So we did some of the talk about the pod. I honestly couldn't tell you what that. Well, I looked right before the pod today, but I couldn't tell you what that episode was about.
I got nothing.
Nothing. I mean, there's nothing stopping us from going to look, but yeah, there's been a lot going on. So you asked me how am I doing? I'm maintaining.
Okay.
I have had a very rough week. I'm still going through transitions in life in general. And I am still healing from trauma and all of that stuff, but it's just compounding things in my workspace right now that are just making life really difficult. Those of you who know where I work, you see headlines every day for my company, and all those things affect me in very real ways. So more things happening this week while I'm here in Atlanta recruiting and trying to show up and be present with the students, and just change on top of change, chaos, trying to communicate, trying to still be a leader. It was just a lot this week. So honestly, I found myself in the hotel room last night sobbing at 1 o'clock in the morning. Just some of it was positive though, just much of it positive. And it was just a moment of emotional overwhelm.
Yeah.
But much of it was positive just to the impact that I've made thus far at Morehouse.
I was going to say, man, that to go what you've been going through and to show up in the way that you've been able to show up, that's commendable, man. Other people would have fallen apart forever ago. I mean, Monday would have been difficult, but you just gave it the best that you could, man. I think that was more than enough. And you could tell when the students come up to you and they're talking to you, how engaged they are. I know, it's slightly different because we feel a little bit older and a little bit further removed from their reality in general. But I mean, I just feel like the energy that they get from you is valuable and they really appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope so, because I'm expending a lot of energy, and
like my man engineering.
Yeah, and I hope to. So I got a couple thoughts on that too, but I hope to. I was reading a book this morning, just trying to center myself. I was reading this book, Disruptive Thinking. It's a T.D. Jakes book. I think it's his most recent book, and he was talking about balancing your emotional checkbook in there and just making sure like your deposits and the things you get. He's got a lot of good ones in there.
That's a good one.
If we were to talk about identity today, I would have given you the quote from the book where he says, "We're born looking like our parents, but we die looking like our decisions."
Ooh, yeah, that's a button right there. Damn.
Yeah. I had a lot of things to talk about in that regard. Anyway, moving back to the topic, the energy that I'm expending and balancing my emotional checkbook, it was a lot harder this week. But the tears were brought about by the fact that the team that I'm recruiting with right now were individuals that I've had a hand in hiring into my organization. They interned there. I did their interviews for internships in other spaces. I spoke in their classroom. So these are 3 guys who I did, like, one of them was a computer science major, went on to Rensselaer for his second degree because he was a dual degree engineering student. One of them we got out of like one of Dr. Malik's courses.
Shout out Dr. Malik.
And just seeing these guys like, Zan, you spoke in my class, like you were someone that were so interesting, or someone that I felt like I wanted to model my career after, and actually seeing them, and we're walking the campus together now. And seeing them as graduates, knowing that it's one thing to be like, yeah, I helped you all get an opportunity, but just seeing the minute they've become and seeing them give back. Yeah. And the way that we gelled as a team, because this is our first time really being physically together as a team. And it was just incredible. We broke bread last night. We went and ate dinner, and it was just good. Like I've been struggling over the last few months with my calling, I'll say, and specifically the role as a facilitator, which you play really well, and you've always played that. And acts of service being your love language, probably your primary love language. It is something that I struggle with, specifically in that I want people to do the same things for me that I can do for them.
Yeah, of course.
And
reciprocity.
And it's not that they don't desire to, but I'm just good and maybe better at certain things than other people. And I am an experienced curator. So it's like I don't get to live in the experiences because I'm curating them for people. And, over the last few months, Ryan, my grandma, my dad, I've seen them and I've treated them to a really good time. I hope that they felt, and I believe they felt. But in those moments, it's like, so I might not ever get this from them, though. And it wasn't like a tit for tat transactional thing.
No, I got you.
It was just like, I wish that y'all could. So I've been struggling with the fact that I'm the vehicle for people's enriching experiences, but I may not be getting enriched from others in the same way that I enrich them.
Fair.
And last night we all went to go eat dinner, and it didn't really occur to, because in my mind, like, I know we have a pay gap, obviously, between us. Like, I've been working for 15 years. At most, they've been working for 4 years. Yeah. And I didn't pay for dinner. We were all using our company card. This is per diem.
Yes, as you should.
But the place that we went, it was probably to some of them a little fancy. So it was a moment where like one, I don't want to call him a student, but one of the guys was like, man, so I'm actually having a little struggle on how to order here. He's like, so the sides are on a separate section of the menu. The sides, I was like, oh, it hit me like, even though you've been in the workforce for 4 years, you probably, and they came in the COVID generation. So you probably haven't done a lot of team dinners.
Right.
You haven't had the experiences that would have exposed you to a la carte sides or
but
things like that.
But you still teaching though. Like you still exposing them to
and
stuff
it was
like that.
It was great because once my mindset got, okay, now I have the opportunity, I get to give you this experience rather than I have to.
Correct.
And even when Audrey was leaving, I said, what you about to go do? She said, I got to go teach. I said, you get to go teach. And I just keep trying to get in that space of gratitude. I get to do this. I'm afforded the opportunity to present an opportunity. So I'm like, okay, well, Samaj, we're going to get you some oysters since you've never, like, what have you all not tried?
Right.
Let's make sure. And that's what I was doing with Grandma and Uncle Jared.
Yeah, you do
not Uncle Jared, RIP Uncle Jared, but Grandma, my dad, Ryan. It was like, what can I do for you that you've not experienced to expand your worldview, your experience to set, just something that you could go home with. It was like, that was just unique. And that's always what I'm doing.
Y'all can share too.
Absolutely. And it's always what I'm doing. And unfortunately, most of those things are things that I have done.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not experiencing it with the same joy, but it was so, on the back end of it, I was so joyful reflecting on the fact that, and give me 1 second, I'll close it out. Reflecting on the fact that, okay, so-and-so got to eat lobster that wasn't picked out the shell for him for the first time. This person had oysters for the first time. When so-and-so was looking at the menu, I'm like, you ever tried halibut? Well, most black people don't like halibut. They say it doesn't have flavor. Try it. It's on the company. Like just, and the fact that they had that trust in me, they were like, you look like a person that's experienced worldly. We know you. We'll take your advice on the thing. So I just love that. And that's one of the reasons I was weeping amongst all the other emotions.
I mean, look, that's a drop right there too. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful experience, man. I think that, to what you said, even still, it's like, you got to, it's a blessing to get to do those things. Because coming from where we came from, bro, it was almost like, all of those experiences are right across that bridge, but it was still foreign to us. It probably wasn't even 5 miles away from where we actually lived, but it was foreign to us. So to be able to do that, and to be able to have done that as early as you have in your career too, I think that's special, because I don't know that they get that experience this early in their life without being able to travel and do this work, and to be picked out for internships, and to be able to do this kind of work. But also talk really quickly about the one of the gentlemen that did an internship and was working for another company doing something similar.
Oh yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. So there's a guy that went spoke in his class, sourced him from Dr. Malik's class as well, gave him an internship, and then he was at Cox, I believe, Cox Communications, and he's since left our company, works at a different company, but he's like, it's so crazy. You helped me with resume review. You did X, Y, Z, and now I'm on the other side of the table. I'm giving back to Morehouse, not still at the same company, but that's always my approach when I go there too. I tell the students, I care about you all as black men, as Morehouse men, or men of Morehouse first, before I'm ever trying to recruit you to this company. I think that energy is really what makes them interested in it.
It's actually authentic, bro.
Yeah, you care about us. It's not just trying to stuff a job in my face. I'm like, the job offers are here. Many companies are here. Yeah. We contribute X hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't want to say the specific number, but six figures to the school every year. I'm signing off on that. So like, there's stuff that we're doing to help develop you all. But beyond that, the hyper care, additional touch type of thing that we're giving is, I want to help your resume to be strong if I don't even have the opportunity for you. Right. I want your resume to be strong when you go talk to the next person. So it fared well with students. There was a guy that walked up to me at the career fair today, and he's like, yeah, I spoke in the LMPD class. Two of them, and I've never took leadership and professional development.
The economics.
So I didn't have to. And it's funny because I felt weird walking in there because I'm in, I don't do dress codes.
I bet it looks different now. Were they wearing suits in there?
So the professor was really, really cool. First of all, let me just start there. Shout out to Professor Henderson. We walked in on him teaching the class, and it was just like incredible conversation. Many things piqued my interest. I had connections to add to it. And just really loved the opportunity. I thank you for continuing to forge these relationships, because it's not easy to get access to the classrooms.
No, it's not.
Like I said, we give 6 figures, and I still don't get to just get in there. Like that, it is not. In some spaces, it's a pay for play system. In others, professors like, so what? That doesn't help me.
Yeah, that's right.
My students need to learn. So I just love that we had the opportunity.
It's always easier when you take in the class or you know the person. That it's always easier.
And these were all new relationships. And the guys who were there had recently graduated were the ones that were forging those relationships. So I love that. And I get to step back now. I'm really the elder statesman. And I really love that, because I never got to be. I'm like, this this is how LeBron feels. But he's got to do a lot more than I do.
Sure, but yeah.
But so feeling. There was a student that was in that class, and that's always a thing too. Back to all of them look the same. White people listening, I will say it for you. All of them look the same. It was a bunch of black guys with locks, and I was like, I've seen so many of you today. I don't know. And they're like, you spoke in my class. I spoke at 8 classes. I don't know which class you're talking about. Did you ask a question? Like, tell me something else that connects it. I asked where you were from. Just connect with me on a human level. So
they're learning that too.
Yeah, and I was telling them that as well. Like, don't just hit me on LinkedIn. Just because, like, engage with my posts. Like, tell me how we connected. There's one guy that was from Detroit, and he's going to be in Dallas this summer. And I'm like, well, I'll actually give you my phone number. And I'm very hesitant to give my phone number now because there was a student that kept bugging me for years. And I told the students that's why I don't give it out. But like I told him, I'll look out for you when there's another guy that was on my team that's in Dallas, younger and closer to his age. I want to connect them. But anyway, the students will walk up and say, you were in my class, you spoke. So one student walked up to me at the career fair and said, yeah, you spoke in my class. I was wanting to talk to you. And then he affirmed me, and I wasn't expecting that. So he long story short, he tells me that I'm well-spoken. And we've talked about this before. I even talked about it on the panel last night of how it was hard for me to receive that when I first started in corporate America because it felt like it was a backhanded compliment. Yeah. And somebody said, weren't you from that Robert Franklin generation where you were supposed to be well-spoken? I'm like, yes. And, you know, over time, I learned that is just a gift of mine, and it was not a backhanded compliment, but I had to get over that because I was in a space, blah, blah, blah. So when the students, it was essentially, I want to show up like how you show up. And in part, I'm like, well, I'm older than y'all. I should be well-spoken. Like, it's just,
that's not a guarantee.
Right. And he was saying,
that's not a guarantee.
But then he hit me with something that I couldn't really answer. He was like, yeah, I want to stop stuttering. I'm like, well, I never had a stutter. I don't know how to help you do that. And while we're talking, he's like, well, what's some advice you could give me to speak, to be better as a public speaker, well-spoken? I'm like, do you have nerves in front of people? No, I don't have nerves. I'm like, well, the things that I would have dealt with, he's not even dealing with. And
speech pathology.
One, I acknowledge, okay, let's just be clear. It is a gift of mine. And I have to own that.
You should.
It is a gift. Linguistics or how my brain works. Speaking is my jam. Let's just start there. And what we arrived at was, so have you ever heard of Toastmasters?
I was going to say
that's a very tactical thing. It was like, I did go to one Toastmasters meeting. I didn't go to many, but I went to one and I got game from it. And that's when I started focusing on, I shouldn't say ahs and ums when I speak.
Yes.
Those types of things. So, and Calvin Nash actually gave his speech or public address, whatever thing you have to do, he gave his that day. And you know, Calvin Nash is super dope. So
shout out to Calvin
I was just
Nash,
impressed by that. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Grace Hall, baby.
So long story short, told the kid Toastmasters. He connected with me on LinkedIn. I really do intend to stay connected with him. I got so many LinkedIn requests, and we know I've gone silent on LinkedIn. Like, that's also a thing that drives me crazy with recruiting. But he really did affirm just having someone who was looking at you from the seat saying, I just like how you show up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they think I'm fresh, just to be clear. Like, I'm going to stand on that. I am fresh.
That helps.
But beyond that, it was like, no, you're actually just the way that you speak and what you were saying to us and the way that it was presented. I like that. And I want to be like that. And I was like, man, that's the thing that makes me feel like, man, the kids look up to me, dog.
Nah, it's dope. I mean, I'm telling you that, that is, I always feel like we underestimate how much time is a gift. And to be able to stand there and show up like, hey, you're already on the right path. I came from this school. I tried to take every bit of game I possibly could from this space, from my Morehouse brothers, from my professors, from everything that's in this environment, and poured that into myself to be able to be this person that's showing up right now. So, I mean, even the fact, because a lot of these students don't really come, they don't usually have much to say when they come up to you. So to be affirmed in a way that's like, you know, you probably didn't know you needed that, but you needed that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? That's a really beautiful part about doing that kind of work. And yeah, I know what you mean with the LinkedIn. I used to do a lot of the talks and the mentoring and the speaking to kids and high schoolers, and it's always a very gratifying experience because their environment and their view of the world is so small. And when you're able to affirm that there's so much you get to do from here, to your earlier point, you get to do this thing if you line everything up the way you need to and get your things done, and not take no for an answer, and really go for it. There's so many things you can actually be exposed to, learn from, enjoy. I tell my brother this now. He's in college now. Just get through the coursework. Make sure you try to talk to people, have an environment, have a community, talk to professors, go to office hours. It's something I didn't do that I wish I did. Go to office hours. Even if it is to just build a relationship, it's very important because once you leave school, there's so many different things that you're going to need from your professors, whether it's recommendations, whether it's just game, depending on what your discipline is or what your degree is in. But yeah, I love that you get to do this because I think you're the perfect person to tell that story because even though we're a little bit further removed, you're more relatable than a lot of the people that show up there. That's a fact. I already know that.
So a couple things that I thought of based on what you said, I would love to talk about, not yet because I have a secondary comment, but put a pin in it. I would love to talk about, you said you're in this school, you're already on the right path. I want to talk about our peers and contemporaries who did not get out of Morehouse.
Yeah.
Like I had a conversation today with someone who was looking at my content that I was posting. It was like, it's dope that all the stuff is there for the business students, but what about the people in liberal arts at the liberal arts school that do not get people coming to talk to them and the resources, blah, blah, blah. Didn't mean to blah, blah, blah in a dismissive way, just shortening my long tooth speech. And the gyms. There's one thing I do want to say here because like the spirit, it came in my spirit last night. Weird way to say that. It came on my spirit last night,
especially of the news of this
week. And I wanted to do, and it's just one of those where I mean I'm attributing it to God, but since I said it yesterday, it's one of those things where I want a little attribution and maybe to be one of my quotes one day. Yep. But there was a student who came to just soak up game. In that panel, we bought 30 burritos. There were 2 students that came to hear us talk, and there were 5 panelists from us. So it was completely off, but it was incredible to have that intimate, small environment. And it was just the one guy who came, he was like, I had many questions, but I didn't even ask him because you all kept talking and they just got answered. He said, I'm just being here being a sponge. He was a guy from the Bronx. He's from Gun Hill. His name was Daryl.
Wow.
And
Gun Hill. My mom used to live.
Said, man, that's up there. And he was just sitting there and you could see his face. He was so attentive and listening. And he and another guy named Miles, they were the only 2 people there, and they sat until the lights went off in the place. Wow. Like, you got the motion lights, and you could wave them. Yep. To the second time when we waved, and they would no longer come back on. They were still in there just listening. They had additional questions. I'm like, I couldn't believe that y'all, just 2 people sat in front of 5 and listened to us just speak. And that's those opportunities, office hours, like they're going to get something incredible from that, invaluable. And like, I'm going to remember those 2 out of everybody I've seen. But beyond that, the student Miles asked, how do you find your purpose and your passion? And like, that's such a difficult question to answer.
We're still trying to find it, my brother.
And the more junior members of the team just all turned and looked at me, right? Because I'm the person that they think I'm operating in my passion and gifts. And I was honest. I talked about how after loss, I told Xavier, I'm like, Xavier is my mentee outside of all this and a friend as well. So we have really, really dope conversations, and he's reverse mentoring and teaching me all types of things. Yep. And he's about 10 years younger than me. So I told him as a friend, I'm like, man, I don't even want to show up the ways that I've had to show up for people anymore. I don't have that energy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have noted this week, specifically 2 women that have known me for a long time. They're like, Zan, we just want to make sure you're okay. Like you look different. Your spark is gone. Like you're just, it's not the looks, like physical look, but they're just like your energy is not what we know it is. Yeah, and like, we miss that but not like it's just like we know, like it's like the aunties that wanted to hug me. They know what type of things to say. So I told Xavier in that conversation, I just want to be a wanderer playing my flute like Andre 3000, and Xavier in his just intelligence and brilliance and what's the word for like wise beyond your years, precociousness. So he goes, well, yeah, you weren't called to be a flute wanderer, though. He said, I'm sorry to tell you, though, Zane, you aren't called to be a flute wanderer. Right. That's not. And I was like, man, I hated hearing that, but he was so right. So on the topic of purpose, my response to Miles, channeled through spirit, was you don't seek your purpose finds you. And what you should be seeking is joy daily. And as you seek joy and do the things that bring you joy, your purpose will be found in the things that bring you joy. And he just hit the like it clicked, and everybody else on the panel was looking at me like, and I was like, that's all I got, because I still don't have an answer for purpose, right? I don't know that I'm operating in mine and or that I found it, but to that point of calling and things and being that vessel, if that is my purpose, I'm trying to get more comfortable in that as well. And as you think about the creating of experiences as you are, on your fatherhood journey, that is most of that transition, right? Yeah. Everything that you've done is to bequeath to someone else or someone's else, if it's multiples, or if the future holds that for you and all of that. And while you get a practice run with having a wife, it is also just that thought of your, and I'm pushing this in an identity conversation. You begin looking, and I'd like to hear if this is how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
On my fatherhood journey, it was everything I did was now looked at through a lens of what would Aura be looking at me, like Aura's eyes.
We talked about this.
And you start looking at yourself, even like when you look in the mirror, am I a dad? Do I look like a dad? Like, every action has a different level of scrutiny and looks, you're looking at it differently, right? Sure. So to that end, with your identity, how have you felt like your identity has changed, or do you feel like it's changed in any way since the news, however many weeks ago?
I think two things, and it has to be kind of laid out. I think framing needs to be there for those who listen to the podcast,
all the
for
context.
Those that know me, that have ever been around me, but for those who don't, my father ran into some issues when I was younger, and we were separated at that time because he had to look out for himself at that time, which, I think I understand more now as an older man, but, really struggled with it really up until maybe, let's say, 6-7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then, my mom passed away at a young age. So those feelings of abandonment for me have been really strong. I mean, it's affected, everything. Relationships, it's affected, work. It's affected my schoolwork. It affected a lot of
your
different
identity.
Things. What you say?
It's affected your identity.
It's affected my identity. That's right. And so because of that, I think, it's very important for me to be there for everything. And looking at, rearing a child and being a husband and doing all of the things that I hope makes this child into a more whole person than I was at the later parts of my life. And I take that job so seriously. And to your point, and I don't know that I would have said this before we talked about this, but definitely now, I get to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of my identity is something that I've always felt like I've always wanted, because I've always wanted to be able to give that to my child, mm-hmm. In a way that I don't believe I've ever received it. And I've been so fortunate to have so many awesome dads in my life. My mom married my dad from that, relationship. My grandfather, who was there forever, literally taught me everything I know about fixing things and just being a problem solver. Like, that is something that's really innate to me. I don't spend a lot of time, and maybe this is to my detriment sometime, I don't spend a lot of time on the problems. My mind really almost always goes to the solutions. It's something I've had to wrestle with and kind of alter, to sit with certain things and really not speed read over trauma or tragedy or things of that nature. And so, yeah, to your point, I spend a lot of time seeing myself, looking at myself in the mirror and really having a sense of readiness, mm-hmm. Because of everything I've been through in this life. Helping raise my little brother, Francis. I won't tell you what we call him at home. But all of those experiences, I feel, have brought me to this point where I take nothing for granted. I'm grateful for everything. It's going to be, because I know I show up for so many people, I know I'm absolutely capable to show up for my child and for my wife. And that's going to be a huge part of my identity, moving forward, which is going to be the protector, the provider, the person that shows up, the person that's here to problem solve. All of those things are kind of wrapped up in those emotions and identity of wanting to be there.
So thank you for the answer. Yeah. Thank you for indulging me in the topic.
Of course.
You framed it as a job in one aspect, which I think many of us do. And many of our facets.
It's more of a role than anything else.
Sure, I mean, that's fine, but I'm going to take it as the job, right? Jobs and roles, I mean, synonyms.
So,
I mean, break out your thesaurus. Oh, wow. Slight difference. So
my position.
Many of us look at our identity as a bundle of different jobs and hats that we wear in some ways. And identity has many different dimensions to it. So it is, you know, you got race, gender, age, all of those different things that get in there. But when we really talk about what makes up who I am at my core, we look at some of those job roles. And I mentioned this to the students yesterday as well, the 2 students who were in there, that
they got a lot of game.
They did. And plenty of Chipotle leftovers. So
they doesn't love that. That's a great night.
It was great for them. They took a lot of burritos. I was like, man, are you gonna eat those tonight? Like I had questions.
You passing them out?
No, they were for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I respect
put it in the
that.
top. College students got different metabolism. So
everything's expensive now.
That too. Everything was expensive when we were in school. It's just like being a college student is hard.
Fair.
And somebody said the price of the degree or like the yearly semester charge the other day, and I was like, wow.
I don't feel like being upset right now.
So, and it was an administrator who said it actually. So anyway, identity and jobs. And when you look at those roles that you occupy, I said to the students, I know for a fact I'm only good at occupying 5 jobs in my life at one time. And we've probably talked about this before. So sometimes that's artist, clothing designer, diversity dude at work, Elizabeth's husband. Elizabeth's husband and maybe son. Or when I'm not being a good son, I pick up another role. It's like friend to someone else and I got to drop something. So all of those things, I can only take on 5 pieces of that identity at a given time without one other thing crumbling or me just being overwhelmed and overloaded. Yeah. But when you look at it as a job, back to what we've been saying, you get to do that job, and it's the greatest job on earth when you occupy those roles to support those people that are in your sphere and in that circle that you've actually created for yourself. Yeah. And when it comes to the identity, especially in the job standpoint, so much of our identity as adult men is wrapped up in legit career and the job that I have. And we know that in the times that I've taken leaves of absence, it's been to kind of decouple my job from my identity.
I didn't know how much my identity was wrapped up in my job until Elon bought Twitter. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe, but I don't know that I realized how intertwined the role of that job was attached to who I am.
And people still like, I mean, this is attached to my identity. Like if you had a contact card in my mind, I'm still attaching Twitter to your identity.
No
and it's just one of those things. Well, Stu worked at Twitter for 8 years. It's just one of those things that I tell people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I didn't love the job and love the culture and the people that I got to call family now at this point, maybe I wouldn't feel like it was so wrapped up in it, but definitely, I mean, we talked about this. It was like mourning a loss. So,
I just made the light come on. Light bulb. I don't even know how I did that.
No, it's all time.
Oh, it's time.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So that was perfect. So illumine me. So, but to that point of career and identity intersectionality, I would say so much of that, at least for me, so much of that is based on the achievement mechanism that your career plays. So you are allowed to accomplish things and have a metric of accomplishment at some pace of regularity via a job.
Yeah.
And now looking at this fatherhood aspect of your identity, your accomplishments that you get through your child are going to be so different, but you have another thing that will fulfill you outside of career in ways that you probably wouldn't even understand. I can't fully understand because I wasn't blessed to go fully into that journey in the way that I would have liked. And you will have these moments, I would assume, where like just simple development things, you had such a play and a role in that, right? And I think about, we've been talking about success a lot lately, and I've often said the measure of success should be, or when so much of us put pressure on ourselves about whether or not we're successful, and I've often mentored people saying, you should go ask your family, what are they proud of about you? And you'd be surprised. And you are so focused on your success being staked on your accomplishments, but in reality, your family probably doesn't know what you do for work.
That is
at all. They can't describe it.
No, they can't.
My grandma tried really hard. She was close too. My grandma actually said diversity something, and I was like, Grandma, what? You knew that?
There you go.
But the things that make you proud are not going to be the things that make your family proud.
Yes.
And often your family is proud that they raised a decent human being.
That's right.
Because there's so much human indecency in this world, and there's so many just crapped up. I wanted to say a curse word, but just so many messed up people in this world that raising a decent human. Your family's like, hey, you did something. You're a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
You're out here being a contributing member of society. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
Other people love you, and that means that something we did was right here.
Yeah.
Whatever else you care about, awards you win, it's cool for me to congratulate you, but that's not what I can't remember what that award was. I'm not attached to that person. I'm attached to the human that you became in the world.
I want to pass that down because I think that growing up, a lot of your success and a lot of whether or not it was worth it for your family to come to this country is tied in what you do and how
it was super specific immigrant.
I mean, it's a real thing.
I guess my dad's an immigrant. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I can identify.
It's a thing. I mean, I'm saying it doesn't come from nothing like that.
No, yeah, you just use the specific immigrant, whether it was worth it for your family. I wanted to call out that is an immigrant mindset.
It's a thing, no doubt. You know what I mean? And so you put that added pressure on yourself that's already there from your family, kind of looking at you to be, and we're onlys. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's another pressure that's added.
It's another layer of identity too.
It is. That's true. So yeah, I mean, I think when I look at the journey and how far we both come, but when I'm thinking about being a father, that is something I want to pass down. I'm gonna love you regardless. I want you to do what I want. The things that you care about, I want you to chase that with as much passion as you possibly can. I'm gonna be proud of you regardless. I'm gonna love you regardless. That will never change. And I don't think a lot of men get that from their families. I don't think a lot of kids in general get that from their families because their parents are so worried about trying to build them in their image and maybe make up for some of their generational trauma that maybe they weren't able to. Because you're
born looking like your parents, but you died looking like your decisions.
I think we can end it right there, bro. That is wild. That's a good one.
Before I would love to end there. Let me add one more thing.
Please do.
Not related to the identity thing.
We gonna get this off.
No, not related to the identity thing. I want to end on a shout out. I don't remember bro's name, but I remember his organization and I remember his cash tag. So there's a young brother that I met outside of the cafeteria. He was selling. Well, selling wasn't even a thing that he was promoting on the front end. He was actually giving out free hugs. And Stu just mentioned something about things that we don't know. I can't remember what triggered it, but it was essentially things that black men don't have and we didn't learn. And so he has a nonprofit organization called Black Men Need Hugs. And the nonprofit is focused on teaching the youth. So he was in college. So probably and I asked him, what is his demographic? He's saying elementary school kids, young black boys on the language to navigate their emotions.
Yeah.
And communicate how they feel.
We talked about this before.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm around, I speak to black men every Tuesday. Well, three out of 4 Tuesdays a month, I speak to black men, and many of us still don't know how to communicate. And there's a lot more prompting and pulling in. Yeah. Because I'm in HR, it's easier for me to pull that. But we're not developed in that way.
I just want to point that out. Because the first time I told him I loved him, he thought it was so strange.
That's different than communicating how I feel. No,
That's
it is, sure. And I didn't like when you hugged me. So
right, there you go.
This thing about I interacted with him. I gave him some feedback because his graphic on I bought a tote bag from him. The tote bags went to the nonprofit org. And you're right. I should be promoting his merch. So I bought a tote bag from him. The tote bag says Black Men Need Hugs on it. It has 2 those AOL male blown up stick figures hugging.
That's good. AOL.
And I was just like, hey, a little bit of feedback before I even bought one. I was like, and they were in different colors. The men were in different colors on there, but almost all of them except for one had a white male figure hugging the black or brown or maroon male figure. I was like, it just kind of feels like black men need hugs from white men is what the message is based on the graphic. It's and I would take a hug from a white man in a heartbeat, but it seems like that's just the messaging. That might not
be the message you're trying to get.
It's just in general, we need hugs. But since all of the characters are just a white character, it's if that is what you want to approach, sure. But anyway, because now it sounds like I'm bashing it. He took that feedback very well.
Yep.
And I love what he's doing with the organization. I've rocked that bag for 2 straight days around campus. People are oh, that's so-and-so. They know his brand. But more importantly, a guy walked up to his table after me and I was kind of standing off to the side, just observing. And another young Morehouse brother walks up and the guy who's selling things says, how you doing today, man? And I didn't quite hear the other person's explanation or answer, but it felt short. But when he requited it and asked, well, how are you doing? The guy who was selling stuff, whose organization this is, gave a real answer. Said, well, I've been under a little bit of stress lately. Like talked, and that then pulled more out of the other person. And he said, hey, and he had the sign on the table, free hugs. He's like, do you want a hug, bro?
Yeah.
And actually gave him a hug. And I loved that so much. Major. It's like just to see a dude on campus, just like, I'm spreading love.
We've come a long way, boy.
I'm just spreading love, bro. Yeah. Like, and so shout out to Black Men Need Hugs. His cash tag is
we'll put it in the description.
$ BLK Men Need Hugs. Just support him as much as you possibly can. Support your people out here. Humans need hugs. There's a lot of other TD Jakes quotes from the book that I was reading about just our humanity, and what we really need is to be affirmed. And we talked about affirmations and all of that. So
that TD Jakes quote, you're born looking like your parents, but you die looking like your decisions that's gonna stick with me, boy. Wow. Yeah. That's
what's another thing that we talked about this week that'll stick with you? and I'm talking from a joke standpoint.
My memory's been so bad.
What's Waka Flocka Flame's favorite Asian dish?
Yeah. I was telling the story. Okay, that's pretty good. So as you know, Zan is absolutely a foodie and has like a list of places that he likes to go and eat in any city, really. Especially if he's going there, he'll look at menus for a long time to figure out and plot out his trip itinerary for food. So we went to Hawker's, which, it's in other cities as well. But we're sitting down at the table and we're trying to figure out what we're going to eat. I love bao buns. That's one of my favorite things to eat. And then off the cuff too, unprompted, was like what's Waka Flocka's favorite meal?
Favorite Asian meal.
Favorite Asian meal. That's important. Yeah. That's important. And the response was bow, which is good. But in the moment, I couldn't think about what the answer was. I literally just said, this is what I'm going to eat for dinner anyway. But just love moments hanging out with my brother. It's always a good time to do this live. The energy is always great.
And so let's end here. Let's end on another dad joke. I won't give the punchline to them, and we'll see what they give us at. Like that'll be a little engagement thing.
We'll cut that. We'll see if they'll comment.
What do you call? And don't go look it up, y'all. No cheating.
Honor system.
What do you call an alligator that's wearing a vest?
Dang, I know the answer to this, and I still forgot.
You're trash. You're trash. So let's end there. We'll find some music to play on. The 1,000 Bottles of Baby Formula podcast is now in the books. Episode 25. Glad to be back.
Feels good.
There've been quite a few people that have asked about this.
A lot. My brother asked just yesterday.
Prince.
So, yeah.
He'd really be listening. We've kind of pandered to a young audience today. Yeah, I think we're doing all right.
He got 2 shout outs today. He'd be all right. But I mean, they'll be fine.
Prince and Jeremiah, right?
Yeah. Prince, Jeremiah, Michael, Michelle.
Got a whole lot of names. That's the thing. Them kids got some names on them. Boy, when I was getting these resumes, and this is coming from Zantorn, I was like, woo. All right, y'all.
Peace.
Peace and love.